God does not discriminate against us having friends, even as married men or women. Friends are there to help enhance our relationship with God and our partner. Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 11 tells us that we should therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as you are doing. Hebrews chapter 10 verses 24 to 25 says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another unto toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." The Bible here encourages couples to have friends. It is, however, important to know when and how to keep such friendship in line with your marriage, especially if that friend is of the opposite gender. God has no problems with you keeping friends with the opposite gender in marriage. It is, however, important to know how your spouse feels concerning such friendship. If your spouse does not like it or is uncomfortable with it, it is left to you to make them see that there is no harm involved and that such friendship will rather benefit their relationship rather than harm it. One way to make your spouse feel safe about being friends with the opposite gender is by being their best friend. The more you make them your best friend, the more you can confide and trust you. Confiding in your spouse means you do not keep secrets from them. You are open to them about every one of your decisions and actions in your life, including whom your friends are and what they mean to you. What matters most is knowing how your spouse feels concerning such a relationship with your friend who is of the opposite gender. For example, your wife may not feel comfortable being close to a friend who is a woman like her because he or she feels whatever closeness you should be with her. So having a friend of the opposite gender is not wrong at all. What matters most is knowing how your partner feels concerning such a situation. It is important to note that when your partner does not want it, then it's best to not have any friendship at all. At the end of it, all that matters the most is the happiness of your relationship or marriage. So, it is important not to do things that can endanger or make your spouse feel uncomfortable and thereby destroy the peace of the marriage. Many things should be sacrificed for the sake of your spouse, and that includes friends of the opposite gender, no matter how important or sincere your relationship might be with them. There are so many ways to make your partner feel confident and assured if you have an opposite gender friend. The genesis of your relationship should be revealed to your spouse. Human is naturally jealous of their spouse's friends, especially if they are of the opposite gender. One way to make them feel more comfortable is by making your spouse part of such friendship. This way, your spouse will have a sense of belonging and might feel less threatened or less uncomfortable with such friendship. This way, they are billed as friends of the couple rather than being your friend alone. This helps eradicate the awkwardness and enhances your spouse getting to know firsthand and judging the kind of friend you have. They then become less edgy and more receptive since they are part of the friendship. One major area that is important to know in having an opposite gender as a friend in marriage is by defining boundaries and making your spouse understand the nature of such friendship. Avoid getting too close or attached to an opposite gender, knowing fully well that no matter how sincere your relationship is with such a person, it might be construed and might cause issues with your spouse. You mustn't make friends with your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend after you are married. This is sure to ring alarm bells in your spouse's head. You have no business being friends with such. The past is past, no matter what you shared or how close you are. This does not mean you should not be civil or courteous when you come in contact with them, but it would do you a great deal of good if you delete their contact and make it possible that you have no interaction with such person. So many married men and women have fallen into the trap of engaging and making friends with their ex-partner, who they met before eventually getting married. The devil knows that there were once chemistry between you and your ex, and if you are not careful, could lure you into the trap of being close to them in the guise of friendship, and then eventually falling victim to sexual sins and infidelity. The Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 11, "Lest Satan should take advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." The devil uses different ways and tricks to try to make us fall victim to infidelity, as a result of being slack and letting our guides down, especially in issues relating to someone who was once your ex. Your partner also has every right to feel indignant and uncomfortable with it. Don't try to be defensive, as this only puts them on edge. It is better you quit such a relationship since your spouse does not support such. Another area where it is important to be careful in having the opposite gender as a close friend is at the place of work. Most of the time, we spend more time at work than home, and it is only natural that your partner feels uncomfortable and unhappy knowing you have a very close person at work, especially when he or she is of the opposite sex. Being away for too long, acting secretive, and being defensive only tends to intensify the problem. This is why most wives feel jealous and suspicious of their husband's secretary, especially during so-called business trips and meetings. To help remove the doubt in your spouse's heart, it is significant you do not get too close with your coworker of the opposite gender. Rather, you could try to get close with the friends of the same gender with you, as this might make your spouse more comfortable. It is also important you set boundaries with your coworkers at work. Your spouse might feel uneasy with you revealing to your coworkers family secrets. This is why you must make your spouse your best friend all the time. Having a friendship with the opposite sex is cool, and even better when the opposite gender is married and also has a spouse. Making friends with the opposite gender, especially when you are married and the friend is single, is not advisable. When your friend is married, it reassures your spouse, and you, making your spouse meet your friend and his or her spouse, will go a long way in solving whatever doubt and fear your spouse might have concerning such a relationship. All in all, you should cultivate a same-sex friendship rather than having a friend of the opposite gender. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 7 says, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting get understanding." It is important to have the wisdom and guidance of the Lord concerning your relationship with the other gender as a friend. Whatever would make you sin or lose your marital peace should be avoided. Seek the face of God concerning such friendship. It is important to err on the side of caution when you are friends with an opposite gender, especially when you are married. Set reasonable and appropriate boundaries. Even if your partner is comfortable with such a person, make sure the person is born again and a real child of God. That person should be someone who should enhance your relationship with your spouse for the better and should be a good example to you. Learn to evaluate your friendship with the opposite gender and get to know the reasons why you are friends with such an individual. If the reasons are covert enough and reasonable, then it is left to how your spouse feels about such friendship. How receptive or uncomfortable your partner feels should help you decide between keeping such a relationship or calling it to quit. Comparing your partner to your friends or being overtly defensive of your friends when your partner raises issues about your relationship with them can destroy and break up the marriage. It would only heighten the suspicions your spouse has with that friend and would make them seem jealous and paranoid concerning such issues. Your behavioral pattern in the relationship, especially when in a relationship with an opposite gender, would be scrutinized by your spouse. In conclusion, your friendship with the opposite gender has the potential to either create problems for your marriage or enhance it for the better. It is left to you to set appropriate boundaries with such friends to enhance a good relationship with your spouse. Everything should be done moderately and balanced well. Your trust and commitment lie to your spouse first before any friends or family. It is critical to note that if your partner feels uncomfortable about such friendship, even after all you have done to make him or her see reasons with you, then you should quit such a relationship with such an opposite gender, no matter how good your relationship is. This is the sacrifice you have to make for your spouse and relationship happiness. Finally, depend only on the Spirit of God to always guide and lead you right in whatever decision you take.